There's a bill on the table in Congress. It's called Climate Emergency Act of 2021. In the House, it's H.R. 794, and in the Senate, it's 938. It was presented in the Senate after the House, but the person presenting it that sponsored it was Bernie Sanders, and he got Jeff Markley and Ed Markey from Massachusetts. So Jeff Markley is from Oregon. They've joined in and sponsored this bill. Currently, Scopus Labs is giving this a 3% chance to pass, and not because of Republicans, obviously. The majority in the House is Democrats, but they still think that Democrats are not going to let this happen. Now, what is this bill all about? It is basically a bill that is calling to make the climate change, climate crisis, climate emergency, a national emergency. And this has not only it has a significant it has, in terms of how it looks, it has an importance, and also in practice, because once a national emergency is pronounced, the president has a lot of powers that he otherwise does not have, and they could intervene and cause things to happen. So this has practical implications as well. It is currently committed to the Senate Environment and Public Works. In the House, however, in the Senate, however, in the House, it's being sponsored by Earl Blumauer from Oregon, 3rd District, and there was 44 other Democrats that signed on, and it's being assigned to some other I forgot which department, but let's look at the countries that declared climate emergency. Most of the countries that declared did though in 2019. Only one in 2020. The latest one was Maldives. The ones that signed up.
Be waiting.
What's that?
Maldives should not be waiting.
Yes.
They're kind of going under the waves.
They're screwed, yeah. So they have a good reason to be on this list. But we should mention Austria, Bangladesh, Canada, France, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Malta, Portugal, New Zealand, South Korea, Spain, and the Vatican, as well as the European Union as a whole, signed up to declare this an emergency. Now, this has mostly representational importance in this regards, but it's still important to state that, so we behave that way. The countries that did not have, and a lot of, if you Google what is the first country that signed on a global climate emergency declaration, what comes up is Australia. Australia has not fully ratified it. What happened was there were cities in Australia or regions in Australia that have, and this is the case also with all of these other countries that are on this list. So Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Bulgaria, Chile, Colombia, Croatia, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Germany is on that list.
No.
Greece, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Philippines, Poland, Romania, Singapore, Slovakia, Slovenia, and Sweden, and the UK, and the US. All of these could not get their shit together nationally to put their name on a declaration of a climate emergency. If you're not on that list, that don't even think about it. If you're not on that list, like for Israel, for example, is not on the list.
China.
Nobody there has ever done anything in this regards. China. Yeah, so this is the situation.
Maybe when a few more cities get flooded, one or two of them will switch over.
And look, this is exactly the point. I mean, if you look at the Netherlands, the Netherlands already wouldn't exist if they wouldn't have the technique, to keep the water out of the country,
Yep.
and and that the Dutch government does not recognize this problem or is refusing to play with open cards. It is mind blowing, right?
Yep. But
I find it really hard to believe that Italy hasn't signed on, considering I've been to Venice and people literally can't leave their house because the water's so high. They have to have people in gondolas deliver their bread and food.
So it shows you how much
you gotta see. You got to see those people, those people in power. They are still calculating, what is more important, and they say, okay, we still can survive. We know that we can survive. We got enough resources available. We got the money for it. So fuck them all.
It's just
that's the mindset.
Yeah, it's not that
and we're gonna have a lot of climate refugees.
Yeah, we've covered that.
We talked about this in one of the last shows. It would be mind blowing. It is not only those people who are flying from wars. There's already the United Nations estimated for the upcoming years to be about 80 million people on the run.
No, there's 80 million.
Only for wars. For wars.
Yes, and they're considering 300 to 400.
Yes. If you look at, just before the show, while we were working out the technical difficulties, Markus and I were talking about, and I mentioned, the world is already 1 degree C above baseline warm.
Yeah.
Two's baked in the cake. I think we all know that. Emissions since 1990 have got CO2 emissions have gone up 60%. That's the increase in emissions. So 2 degrees is for sure. What about 3, 4? Well, jumping ahead, if a 4-degree world means that you have a wide equatorial zone that's uninhabitable most of the year because it's too hot and it's above the wet bulb temperature. North of that, you have deserts. You think of the Sahara expanded all the way around the globe on both south, in the northern hemisphere, and where the Amazon rainforest used to be, south of that. That's all going to be barren desert, rock, sand dunes.
Of course.
No more trees, no more grass. Above that, then you get into the more Arctic regions, and at 4 degrees, some people studying the climate, this is serious scientists, who have figured out that in a 4-degree world, we can only have 500 million people. We want the agriculture, the amount of land that would be left over to grow crops with would only support.
And in what a world that would be, and that's not even considering mass extinction, which is happening alongside. So that's not
this
even
is just the human cost. Yeah. And the thing is, when do we have to worry about this? 2050, when the year 2050 comes, we could have 9 billion people. But if we don't do anything and people don't get serious, the 4 degree C world comes at 2100. That's 50 years later. So between 2050 and 2100, 6 billion people have to die one way or the other. And, this is the legacy that we are leaving our grandchildren if we don't do something.
Yes.
Yeah, and let me reiterate what the takeaway from this whole thing is in terms of the declaration. If we cannot, if these countries that are already started seeing all these effects of the horrible weather and all this stuff that's going on, if they cannot get their act together to even do something symbolic as to declare a climate emergency, then where are we with them taking actions? They're not even required to, by declaring, they don't have to do anything about it. It's just declaring. It's a symbolic act, and they are not doing that. So this is very disheartening to me, and I'm sure to you as well.
Yeah. We learned this last week when we talked about the Exxon guy. You know, they're agreeing to everything knowingly that it would not pass, would not become any law. So, you know.
And regarding the Congress, like I said, the likelihood that most Democrats will even support it is low. But at any rate, there's not a single Republican that's been in favor of it. In fact, they have been in opposition to declaring an emergency. And the person who wrote the announcement on that was Republican August Pfluger from Texas, and he says, if there were to declare a climate national emergency, President Biden would undeniably break his pledge to be a president of all Americans, and that he would fight as hard for those who did not support me as those who did. So his whole announcement is basically the idea behind is that it's not representing the corporations, therefore is breaking his.
I'd like to hear him explain that comment. You know, you can throw that out there, but nobody can challenge him and say, "Oh, could you please explain that?" Exactly.
He cannot. This quote could have been directly from Idiocracy.
Yeah,
it makes no sense at all.
And further, he said that, you want to read that one, Keith?
A climate national emergency would magnify Biden's environmental agenda that is littered with policies that would, we lost it here. I have to get that.
That would drive up consumer costs, produce job losses, drive up federal deficits,
increase dependence on oil from foreign countries, and generally disadvantage the United States with nations such as, I love this part coming up, Saudi Arabia and Mexico, as well as adversaries such as China, Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. Now, excuse me, but exactly when did countries get consciousness and start thinking and doing paintings and stuff? I mean, I thought humans did that. You know, adversaries are people. You know, they are not countries. If you are calling a country an adversary, you shouldn't be in politics. You should be voted out. Before I should say burned at the stake, I'll shut up. But, you know, I don't like, you know, these people who are always presenting other countries as adversaries or friends, because it's playing the same game, only that's, you know, nicer. And yeah.
But regardless of that, regardless of that, however, it is completely ludicrous because it's completely false. There's no we're talking about tax, carbon tax that would be implemented on the borders on international trade, and so there is no advantage to any of these countries if we enact even if we did a carbon tax, not only if we just announce it to be a climate emergency. And whatever Biden can do is limited even with these additional national emergency powers. So the whole thing is this complete bull, and people buy. I guess people on the right buy this.
The god of profit.
Yeah. And
like in 2016, when Bernard was asked in the debate, what's the biggest threat against our country, and he said climate change, he was mocked and made fun of so bad forever. And I mean, it was the truth. As far as Biden, I mean, we saw during his campaign how many times he said to people, when they asked him to stop taking, corporate money from, Raytheon and stuff, he would say, go vote for someone else, literally.
Yeah,
and then who was on his cabinet? people who worked from Raytheon and stuff like that. So, I mean, we definitely need to be realistic. The chance of him, I mean, he told us who he was. I mean, he's told us who he is for 40 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we just have to be realistic. Yes, it would be utopian if he would call a climate emergency, which he could do right this second. But I don't see it being feasible.
Yes.
And talking about being, go ahead.
You know, he was invited, elected to, you know, sort of do like the Pharaoh and split the baby in half and try to make everybody happy. But as far as a game changer, I wish, you know, from the progressive point of view, you got to put pressure on him, because, you know, as Richard Wolff, I listen to him a lot, and he's got some good stuff to say about Biden, in the sense of, you know, he's trying, but his hands are pretty tied, and so you can't get on him too much, according to him, because he's so hobbled by the Republican and conservative Democrats. You know, I'm not sure
I don't buy that
I fully agree with
at
that
all.
point of view, but, you know, I mention it because that's a point. But, you know, it amplifies the fact that he's not a game changer. He's there to get, you know, everybody